Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cam Crogie, and I am actually a full-time employee of 4-H Ontario. I am coordinator of volunteer support for Regions 1, which is Northern Ontario, and Regions 2, which is Eastern Ontario. And in my spare time, my family and I have a beef farm. So I'm going to try and turn this around so you can see the cows, because I'm actually out with the cows now. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's supposed to be working now. So I guess everybody should be able to see the herd of cows now. Yeah, my family and I, farm down in the Ottawa Valley, just outside of a little village called Douglas, and we're about 20 miles away from the town of Renfrew to give you a reference to a larger town. I've been born and raised around beef cattle. My parents used to laugh because the first word I ever said was cow. It wasn't ma or dad, it was cow, because I used to spend numerous hours watching the cows through the window of the house. My family and I raise purebred shorthorns. I'm actually the seventh generation to raise shorthorns in Canada. My family immigrated here from Scotland in 1851 and started within a year or so with a couple of what they called Durham cows back then, but the name was changed to Shorthorns then. We are purebred for the most part. I have a few stragglers here that aren't. I'm actually pasturing a couple of cows for a neighbor of mine. Also has some red Angus here. So that being said, we market our calves. We calve our cows out usually pretty much over the whole span of the summer or the whole span of the year. I had January calves this year. We had some calves in March and again some calves in May. I'll tell you a little while later on why we do that. Um, so yeah, basically our cows spend probably about 3/4 of their life outside. I'm a big believer in giving them lots of freedom. We try to raise our livestock here ethically and with morals. So yeah, we try to have them out as much as we can. The only times they would be in is the wintertime. They're in the yard. And if it's really bad weather, in some evenings, I will put the cows actually in the barn overnight because I don't like to see them have to weather really bad storms. So yeah, as I said, we calve all year round, basically. And the reason behind that is basically we have a freezer trade that we sell beef to. We have a few customers that have been with us for a few years, and we try to time it that we have at least 3 or 4 that we can slaughter over the course of the year. Um, that being said, anything that we sell for breeding purposes, we will sell. I have pretty well an open order for heifers. Everyone seems to want down this way to have shorthorn influenced heifers, and they'll breed them back to bulls such as Charolais and get these buckskin colored calves, like we see some here. Um, the heifers I keep, we keep our own heifers back. We run a very closed herd. We don't bring in any animals from outside except for our bulls. And see if we can get a good look at our bull Miner here. Here's a look at Miner. Miner is actually from Saskatchewan. He moved down here about 6 years ago. He was the Ontario champion show bull that year as a yearling bull. That being said, of course, today there would have to be a cow in heat. You'll see this white-faced cow is in heat, and the bull is following and has been following her since first thing this morning. So we know he's doing his job anyway. So that being said, our heifers we sell locally, the ones we don't keep for ourselves. We try to cut down on the use of drugs and antibiotics in the herd as much as we can. We generally only use it as a necessity to treat if an animal has an infection. We will use antibiotics. We treat our cows in the fall with Ivomec. That's to cut down on the lice and intestinal worms or stomach worms on the beef cattle. That's done in usually around October, November. At that time, I also vaccinate my cows with a vaccine called Triangle 9. And what Triangle 9 gives them immunities to diseases such as IBR, which is infectious bovine rhinotracheitis, and BVD, which is bovine viral diarrhea. So we use that uh, as a vaccination program. Um, when the cows calve in the spring, or winter or spring, when they have their calf, within the first day, I give the calves vitamin E and also vitamins A and D. A lot of Ontario is really deficient in vitamin E or selenium, and so that's the reason for the vaccination, because there's just not enough in our feed in order to cover that the requirements of the animal. We also give our cows a vaccination of what's called a rotocoronavirus, and it's kind of funny. Not well, I don't know. It's funny, but humans have been dealing with coronavirus over the last 2 or 3 years. There is also coronavirus in cattle. They don't transfer. You can't catch it from cattle, but it's a very, very miserable disease. What happens is the calves get the diarrhea, and they never fully recover if they get the coronavirus. So that being said, we vaccinate each calf, and it's really important to get it into each calf's stomach before she sucks a cow. And so you have to be pretty quick to respond when a cow calves. We calve our, as I said, year round our calves. Um, I don't know that I'm going to do any more January ones this year. I'm getting old, and my help is all gone. I have a daughter that's 26 and a son that's 30, and they're all working away. So Dad's here pretty much by himself, and he's pretty much does it all on his own. So he's getting a little tired of that. And that being said, I'm going to get away from the winter calving and try and have everybody calve from March going forward. Um, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
Of
sorry.
course,
A student asked, "What is the common age for a cow on your farm?"
average age. Um, the average age, I think, is around 7 years. 7 years old. I have a couple of old girls here that are older than that. In fact, we're walking right up to a cow called Empress. Oh, that's another thing. We all our cows are named too. This old Empress is 10 now, and I just hate to get rid of her. It was one of my kids' last 4-H projects, and she's kind of the boss around here. So yeah, I don't look forward to when I have to get rid of her, but I'll probably get rid of her this fall. But the average age for her is probably between 6 and 7. That we we used to concentrate on show ring quite a bit. My kids both belong to 4-H. I've always belonged to 4-H in one capacity or another. I started out 4-H as a youth. Back then, the age was 12. I'm going to get out of the way here. The age was 12 back then, and then I retired from 4-H at 21. I became a leader about 17 years ago, and this year I'll be being 10 years working with 4-H Ontario. So a lot of connections to 4-H. We used to raise strictly, mostly a show. We don't do that anymore, as I said, because Dad's getting a little old for that. So we used to breed our cows for show, and that was some of the reason why we had calves in January, because there was classes based on them for calves born in January. You see a couple of these old cows haven't lost their winter coat yet. They're still shedding. Usually when they get to the bush, you'll see them rubbing to get the old hair off themselves. And for the most part, most of them have. We grow most of our feed here on the farm. I do buy grain. We feed basically hay, which I grow on the farm here. And we do buy grain locally. And that's basically for the cows. We give them a little treat over the wintertime. And for the young cattle, too, that are also, we've kept the ones we've kept, and they're feeding up in the barn. Generally, we feed corn, oats, and barley combined, and it's rolled or ground and fed to them that way. The hay bales are all round bales. I came through the generation that did square bales, and I really don't miss it. I really don't want to go back to square bales, because if you want to talk about a lot of labor intensive, that was labor intensive. So that being said, we do all round bales. We do all our own hay here. We farm. I have 100 acres of our own here, and we rent a piece beside us at the back end of a gravel pit that we use specifically for grass for the cows. So those cows will be making a trip down there probably by the weekend. I kept everybody up here so we'd be a little easier to see them. and of course they have to be the furthest they could be away from the barn right now. I do have a couple of animals we are feeding up right now, a couple of bulls. We don't castrate our calves. We leave them intact. We find that they do better than when we steer the calves. That being said, sometimes bulls will fight, but when they're raised together in a group, they don't normally fight. Just had an interesting question the other day from actually one of my coworkers, and she asked how many calves a cow can have. Well, she saw a cow lying down. I think she said there was 4 or 5 calves around it in a pasture somewhere. Excuse me. The most I've ever heard of one cow ever naturally having is 5 calves. That's very rare. We've had lots of sets of twins here over the years, and a long, long time ago, a set of triplets. That being said, quite likely what she saw was a babysitter cow. You'll quite often see my cows in the summer. The herd will go off to graze, and the cows will all stay put in one spot, and they'll leave behind a cow that kind of looks after things should there be any trouble. So that's quite likely what she saw was the babysitter cow. Um, yeah, so basically it was right now there's about 32 head of cattle around here. I have cut back an awful lot in the last 3 or 4 years. We were up to 50 at one time, but yeah, as I said, I'm getting closer and closer to retirement, so we've cut back basically in the terms of the number of cows that we keep. I don't know if there's any more questions or anybody has any questions. We have been doing this a long time, a very long time, and I guess when I first took over the farm, my father passed away. So I was actually studying at the University of Guelph. I was working on my master's degree, and my father passed away, and that had left my mother here with the farm, and nobody to look after things. So I came back home from Guelph. I have a degree in animal and poultry science, and as I said, I was working on my master's, and I also worked at the abattoir at the university in my spare time. So I got to see an awful lot of beef and a lot of carcasses, and I think I got a lot of insight by working there as to what we should be striving to raise in our beef cattle. Generally, we don't ship our cattle, don't slaughter our cattle anything over about 12 to 1,300 pounds. There's a few reasons for that. We have customers that buy a side of beef, and the ideal thing for them, they don't want to buy a monster side of beef. They want just something that's suitable for a family. So that's why we try to keep the finished weight around 12 to 1,300. They are finished on grain. We are not an organic farm. We don't claim to be an organic farm. I still use, as I said, ivermectin on the cows, and as well in the fields we use pesticides. Um, I'm not saying that organic is a bad thing. I actually admire the individuals that have organic operations. They have gone to a lot of work to register themselves and get the licensing to be registered organic. Keep in mind, if somebody says they're organic, they have to have had the registration. I see that too often being advertised as we're organic. Yeah, no, you're not, because you aren't certified for the province to be organic. That being said, we don't use any hormones in our cattle when we're finishing them. There's nothing extra added to any of their feed outside of grain, and a little bit of supplement, usually to bring the protein up a little bit with the feed. It's one of the things, protein and energy, cows have big requirements for. Energy, it's kind of speaks for itself, so that their body can function, and they're able to travel around the pastures and eat, and to produce calves. Protein, especially when cows are in calf and they're developing, is a big deal to make sure the calf develops properly, to make sure you're feeding an adequate amount of protein. Yeah, so I'm not sure really what else. It's
Hey,
we're
hey Kim, a student asked, how many cows do you currently have on your farm?
There's 32 head here.
And we
And
also
as I said, I got a couple. a couple here that are neighbors that I'm actually pasturing for them. So we're probably
Another
around 30 head.
okay. Another person, Jackson, asked, "Where do you take the cows when they're ready for the market?"
Oh, okay. If we're sending them to be slaughtered, we take them to a abattoir which is up the road from us here called Reiki's, and they do all the custom cutting and that. We like working with Reiki's. They're very accommodating. If there's something that we want to change in terms of the order, they're usually pretty open to doing that. When for live cattle, whatever ones I don't sell off the farm to go to private farmers, they go to Crogie Sales Barn, which is called Red Fruit Pontiac Sale Barn, and yeah, so that's where they go.
We had another question. Do you have to worry about predators such as coyotes on your farm?
Yeah, we do have issues with predators, all right. We do. We have a coyote problem here down here. So yeah, we do have a bit of a problem, all right, with predators. That being said, I basically try to keep the cows as close to the house, the barnyard, as I possibly can. We have lost calves before to coyotes. It's not very pleasant to see a coyote kill. We do have a black bear issue now, and some of my neighbors have lost calves with black bears. Um, that's a little harder to control than coyotes. We hunt coyotes in the area and try to keep the number to a minimum. The only time we really ever see them kill beef animals is when they're really at a maximum in terms of population. So if we can keep the population down, just to give you an idea, some friends of mine that hunt them in the wintertime shot 34 last winter. And they're still here. I heard them howling again the other night. So they're not, they're just kind of making a little dent in the population, and that's it. So yes, predators do become an issue here. We have, of course, we have a farm dog. I locked her inside because whenever we come to the cows, she thinks she has to work. So that being said, she decides to try and chase the cows. So I didn't want her chasing the cows away on us when we're trying to walk amongst them today.
Another question is, a student asked, "Do bulls protect the cows?"
Um, no, not so much. The old cows are probably tougher than the bull. I have seen the cows put a run on coyotes before. Actually, it's quite a few years ago. My cows actually killed a coyote, and that you don't see that very often. But especially cows with calves, the mothers try to be quite protective with their calves. So it's like a mama bear. They tell you not to mess with a mama bear when she has cubs. Well, I would say don't mess with a cow when she has a calf either. I actually have a couple here that I don't mess with when they have a calf. Not that they've ever tackled me, but they're pretty vocal about when I'm next to their calf. So, yeah, that being said, yeah, the old cows are pretty tough.
We have another question. Warris would like to know, how much does a cow cost?
A cow, well, it depends, I guess, on what you're buying. Um, we've bought cows in the past. When I was bringing animals in, that we spent up to $3,000 on a cow. Bulls can be anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000. That's why I try to keep my bulls as long as I can because of the fact that they are fairly expensive. And the shorthorn breed, we have a pretty good hold in Ontario, but that being said, they're a little more difficult to find. So when I get one, and especially one as good as we have this in the last couple of years, I try to keep them as long as I can. So what I'll do, the heifer calves that came off of them this year, if we keep any of them, I will breed them artificially. And that way I can use another bull and I'm not forced to get rid of my older bull. We do that on occasion, breed artificially. We actually we use a drug called estramate, and it's actually to bring the cows around in heat to start the heat cycle. And then we'll have when the day that the cows are actually in standing heat, that they'll actually stand for a bull or stand for another cow to milk them. We'll have the artificial insemination guy come in and breed them. um, yeah, I'm not really sure what else I can think of really. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, we have when you shave the cow's hair, do you have to do it manually or do you do it with a machine?
When we shave their hair, well, we use a set of electric clippers to shave them. So it's basically mechanically, I guess. We still have to do it by hand, but it's actually electric clippers that do it. Um, we don't do it as much anymore. Most of the time, the cows will shed their fur themselves. But when we were showing, we used to have not uncommon for us to do an animal 2 or 3 times a year with the clippers, just to make its hair grow the way that we want it to grow. Um, yeah, so that's basically, I guess, in an answer, it's mostly mechanical.
Another question we have is do your cows have names?
Yes, every cow has a name. My They actually do because I should say the registered shorthorn cows do. My daughter is really big on using heritage names. So we have cows by the name of Estelle and old time names like that. And I said a little earlier on, we have another cow called Empress. We have some called Silver Gem, two called Silver Gem. We have a cow called Francine. I'm trying to think who else we have. Um, Delilah, um, Jam. So yeah, they all have a name, and some of them have nicknames because it's too long to say their name. But on paper, they all have a name.
Izzy wants to know what's your favorite cow name?
Favorite cow name? I think Francine. Yeah, I would say that was my favorite cow name, and that's Francine right there in front of us. Actually, she's 3 years old, and she's had her second calf this year. So yeah, Francine, I think, would be one of my favorites.
Are there lots
And
of different breeds of beef cattle?
pardon me.
Are there lots of different breeds of beef cattle?
Oh my word, yes. There's over 100 different breeds of beef cattle. Um, I I naturally picked shorthorns because that's what I was used to. We've been, as I said before, since 1851. They've been raising them here, and it was just kind of a natural choice. I have had some other cows in over the years that I bought and tried experimenting with. We had Highland cattle for a little while. That's the ones that are real shaggy with big long horns. We've used Limousin bulls and we've used Charolais bulls before with some of our cows. So yeah, there's actually over 100 different breeds of beef cattle, in Canada or in North America. That being said, the Shorthorns are the oldest breed in Canada. The first ones came here in 1825, and they were brought into the U.S. initially in the early 1800s, and it was to improve the local cattle. And believe it or not, in the USA there was local cattle because the Spaniards, when they raided Mexico and Texas, actually brought in Spanish Longhorn cattle with them, and that's what the Shorthorn bulls were brought in to do, to try and improve and make some more meat on these Texas Longhorn, or they called them Texas Longhorns after that. So, but yes, there's all kinds of breeds. If you ever have a chance to go to the Royal Winter Fair, that's a good opportunity just to see how many breeds of beef cattle and dairy cattle there are that are exhibited at the shows. And yeah, it's just phenomenal the number of cattle.
Can you tell us what kinds of jobs are available for people to work with cows but aren't actually a farmer?
Um, yeah, actually, down in Ontario here, there might not be as much opportunity to do so. Um, but there is jobs available as herd managers or farm managers that would go in and manage a farm for an individual. And there is a couple of farms that have shorthorns that's the case, where they have hired a herd manager to come in and work with them. Um, there's lots of opportunities in the West. I actually worked for the best part of a year in Alberta, and I actually never had ridden horses before, and I actually had the opportunity to ride checking fences, and so there was lots of employment there. I don't know who always watched that show Yellowstone, but the place I worked at was certainly not Yellowstone, but it was very similar. to a Yellowstone kind of experience, where there was a bunkhouse and the cowboys all stayed in the bunkhouse. I got to work with real live cowboys, and yeah, so there's lots of opportunity in the West. It's a great chance to do a bit of traveling and to gain some experience with cattle.
Could you tell us more about how our youth can get involved with agriculture and 4-H?
Sure. 4-H, I can't say enough good things about 4-H, and that's not only because I work for them. I came through, as I said, as a youth through 4-H, and then acted as a leader. This will be our 17th year as a leader. We run a beef club usually. Um, that being said, there's lots of opportunities to belong to calf clubs. You don't necessarily have to own the animal or own an animal in order to belong. They will find different ways for you to make your achievement day besides having to actually show an animal. I would say last year in our beef club, it was probably about half and half. Half of the members were showing an animal and the other half weren't. So we came up with alternative arrangements for them to do their achievement day. They yeah, if you are interested in it all, go to our website, which is www.4-hontario.ca, and check it out. There's over 50 associations or counties in the province that have 4-H programs, and I would say probably 80% of them have a beef project. So there's lots you can learn from taking a beef project without actually having to own an animal. And yeah, I learned a lot. I had some good mentors when I was in 4-H. Some of my 4-H leaders were definitely good cattlemen, and they taught me a lot over the years. Plus, I learned a lot from my dad too. But yeah, just don't let that hold you back. If you want to be take a calf club, you don't necessarily have to have a calf. Or if you want to have a show a calf, somebody I'm sure will lend you one. Farmers are generally pretty good to lend 4-Hers their animals, and it opens up a whole new world of opportunities for the member or the individual involved. Um, we do lots of neat things with 4-H. And if you are interested, we do have Discovery Days coming up now. You'll see that on our website. The first one of them actually is this Saturday, which I'm going to help with in Kempville. But there is a whole list of Discovery Days listed on our website, and it's actually a great way to find out what 4-H is all about, because you get a chance to do a little bit from each of our different projects, or a few of our different projects, and hopefully it'll give you something that intrigues you and you'll be wanting to be a member. I hope I answered that question.
You definitely did. Thank you so much, Cam. It's unfortunately the end of our tour, and we wanted to thank you so much for showing us your beef farm for local
Well,
food.
I'd like to say thank you very much to Farm and Food Care Ontario, and to Agscape, and to my good friend and co-worker at 4-H Ontario, Autumn, who's coached me through this, because my kids call me the technology dinosaur. So
You've been amazing, and again, thank you so much, and hope everyone has a wonderful day.
yes, thank you very much. Bye now.
Bye.